Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show for the episode of our Raw Reaction series, specifically the Arsenal transfer show. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome. I hope you're having a good weekend and you've still got one day of it left, so make the most of it before Monday starts again. Now, I know what some of you guys are saying. The intro music is a little bit loud. I'm going to do my best to turn it down for tomorrow morning show. There just has not been the time to do it. I got back yesterday from Bristol, and so it's been a little bit hectic. So don't worry, those of you that are in the comments furiously typing already saying the music's too loud. Don't worry, it's going to be turned down by tomorrow's show, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I will prepare you for when I do finish the show as well. So I hope that's woken you up nice and well and earlier now that you are alert and ready for all of the Arsenal news. Please make sure you're dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can by voting for us on the final day. The vote closes today for the Football Content Awards, so you won't have to suffer me saying this unless we get nominated, of course, any longer. Please do make sure, if you haven't already, to give us a vote over on Twitter or over on the website or on Instagram. All of the information is in the description, and you simply just need to tweet. If you do have Twitter, I am voting for at the Gooner Talk TV, in at the FCAs or at the _FCAs for hashtag best club creator. So there you go. Last day of voting is today. It closes, so make sure you get those last final votes in and help support the channel. We would really, really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's go into our first transfer story of the day. And we indeed start with Gabriel Martinelli, and a massive congratulations to Gabriel Martinelli, of course, who won the Olympic gold medal with the Brazilian international side, of course. And so he was very tactical in who he chose to take a photo with after the game and to post to his Instagram feed. And it is indeed Lyon midfielder Bruno Guimaraes, who Arsenal have, of course, been linked to quite persistently. It's gone a little bit quiet of late, but he has, of course, been playing at the Olympics. But very interesting how he has been linked to Arsenal, and of course his use of emojis in the chat box as well, and in the images. He knows what he's doing. It's fair to say, and we love him for it. And maybe Agent Martinelli can, of course, have a couple of words with Bruno and get him into the club this summer. Fingers crossed. But there is no official line on this story as of yet. We then go on to the possible outs, and we start off with Kolasinac, who has supposedly agreed a 3-year contract with Fenerbahce. However, the Turkish club are still yet to agree anything with Arsenal, and it is most likely that Arsenal will end up terminating the contract of Kolasinac. Hopefully, you would imagine so anyway, by mutual consent, so it will not cost Arsenal anything to do so. They won't have to pay it off. It will just be simply cancelled, and that he will then be able to join Fenerbahce on a free transfer. He can then play his games next season in the Turkish league, and Arsenal can focus on having that £100,000 plus per week contract off the books. We then move on to, I believe, Eddie Nketiah. It is indeed, who has been interesting despite injuries. Has been interesting. Brighton, supposedly, who are in for the £20 million rated forward. Now, 20 million quid with a year left on his deal, I think would be an incredible bit of business if Arsenal were able to get that much. I would be happy with 15, to be honest. But he is someone, obviously, with a year left on his deal that is most likely to leave the club. Arsenal would certainly be entertaining offers for the striker. They know they've got following Balogun coming through, so they don't necessarily need to really hang true on Nketiah. And I certainly think that the money got in for him would be a massive boost this window. And Brighton are indeed looking for a forward. Danny Welbeck has suffered an injury, as you would expect. It is Danny Welbeck these days. And so he's obviously suffered an injury with them, and they're without that kind of added goal threat. They've got Neil Maupay, of course, and they've got McAllister, who is away, I think, with Argentina at the moment, or has been away at the Olympics of Argentina, I think, but he is yet to come back and is on his kind of recovery period. So they are lacking in that area, and Nketiah would certainly add to the goal threat in their team, and I think it would be a really good move for him. But if they want him, supposedly 20 million quid is the figure, which is quite high. I think 15 million pounds would probably get the deal done, but it's certainly one that we're going to have to track and make sure we keep an eye on. We then go on to our other young English talent, and Joe Willock's move to Newcastle does appear to be one that is almost a matter of time at this stage. Steve Bruce cannot stop talking about Newcastle's kind of proactiveness to search for this deal and to push forward with this one. 90 Min reported that a £25 million agreement had been made, which doesn't necessarily look to necessarily be true at the moment, but reports have emerged that a deal is still in the works. Talks are ongoing between the clubs and they're trying to kind of work something out. I do think there is a lot kind of associated with Arsenal's needs to get their own attacking midfielder, and should the deal for James Maddison happen, I think they'd be much more open for allowing Joe Willock to leave. The problem is if we let Joe Willock leave and we're then unable to get a deal done for someone else, it would leave us a little bit short in that area without Joe Willock there. So I certainly think that's one of the biggest reasons as to why this deal maybe isn't happening as quickly as we might want it to, or rather as Newcastle might want it to. But it's one that I get the sense and the feeling that he will probably end up leaving the club this summer. Now we move on to the outs, or rather the ins. We should out certainly from other teams, but ins for us. And Kieran Trippier is the first on our list, which has re-emerged as maybe a target for Arsenal. Manchester United were one of the biggest teams associated with a link to Kieran Trippier earlier in the window. That has gone quite quiet as they've pursued deals for Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane. The Atletico Madrid right back, former Spurs player, of course, has been linked with a move to Arsenal. It's a really weird one because his age profile's a bit strange, like late 20s. I'm not really sure if that's the right kind of move that Arsenal should be looking to go for in that position. I'd like to have signed someone maybe in the long term, but maybe they see options in their youth that they think is worth time given to kind of develop these players. But when you've got Cedric, who's also like 28, 29 years of age, it's a bit of a weird one to sign someone of exactly the same age. And you've also got Callum Chambers, who's what, 25, 26. So it's a strange link. I mean, it makes sense because Arsenal have been linked with right backs, and it's the first right back we've kind of been linked with for quite a while. But they're still looking about Hector Bellerin's future. Maybe because Hector Bellerin did interest Atletico Madrid, that this could be used to maybe bring the price down on Kieran Trippier, a player plus cash kind of deal for him. But we'll have to wait and see whether or not that indeed is one that gains any momentum and steam over the coming weeks. We next have obviously James Maddison is the main man for many Arsenal supporters this window now, and one that we want to see. You may have seen over the last couple of days or so people being quite vocal about the idea of Maddison moving from Leicester to Arsenal. And I wanted to touch upon this. Roy Keane spoke about this yesterday, saying that it wouldn't be a step up. Gary Lineker has obviously taken to Twitter as a Leicester fan, of course, to say that taking a backward step never necessarily goes too well. And there's a lot of noise around trying to convince Maddison not to make this move to Arsenal from a lot of exterior sources. Why? Well, why would you want him to? Why would you want Arsenal to sign a great player? We know that Leicester are a well-liked club, and it's not amongst those in the footballing community to try and convince a player to leave them to join Arsenal. But I didn't hear kind of the same things about other players that have moved. And yes, I know those clubs that those players did move to were on different trajectories, but it's still, to me, very interesting how many loud voices there are voicing their concern to Maddison about a switch to Arsenal. No one thinking about the possibility that a move to Arsenal could then do a lot more to accelerate Arsenal into maybe a top four side or a trophy winning side than it would do for Leicester to push forward into the top four to keep him. That's not really something. I think if you move Maddison from Leicester's team into Arsenal's team, suddenly you've got a big change in dynamic of the qualities of the squads. And so I think that's maybe not something that people are necessarily talking about. But there's a lot of noise about Maddison, but there's no specific kind of extra detail on an update of a transfer. We are still waiting to see if Arsenal do indeed bid the required amount. And it could be related to Joe Willock and Eddie Nketiah and Kolasinac. All of these outgoings are certainly going to be affecting whether Arsenal push ahead for this deal for James Maddison. Now, our second to last story of the day revolves around Manchester City's attacking midfielder Bernardo Silva. And should a move for James Maddison not materialise this window, the Portuguese international is being linked with a move away. Arsenal have been credited by the Mirror as to be exploring this as a possible alternative to James Maddison. Why Bernardo Silva would move from Manchester City to a non-Champions League club is obviously going to be a point of contention when in discussing this transfer. You would imagine there'd be a lot of Champions League level clubs that would be vying for his signature, and that would make that slightly harder for Arsenal. But at 26 years of age, Premier League proven, very, very good player. If it was to be that Arsenal would move for Bernardo Silva, I think it would be an excellent deal for them to pursue. I would not be at all irritated or let down by not getting James Maddison to get Bernardo Silva instead. He's an absolutely quality player that would add a lot, I think, to our team. Versatile, can play at right wing, can play in attacking midfield, can even play as a number 8 style player should you want to. And he's got a lot of kind of extra abilities and characteristics that Arsenal would do well to get into their team. Left footer, and that's certainly something that can be more attractive for a team that's, even though it's got a fair few left footers, it's always nice to have another one. It's just something about left footed players that you gravitate towards sometimes. But yeah, Bernardo Silva, certainly a player that I like and would be very interested to see joining Arsenal this summer, but we'll wait and see if James Maddison's deal affects this in any sense of the words. And finally, we move on to Dusan Vlahovic, the Serbian striker that has been linked with a hell of a lot of players and rather teams this summer. He is hot property on the continent, and it seemed only a matter of time. And it seemed only a matter of time for me anyway, that he would obviously be linked to Arsenal. And, you know, we are now in that realm. We are now in that phase that Vlahovic has been linked with that move. Damasio, the very well-known Italian journalist and outlet now, has certainly raised some eyebrows by crediting Arsenal with interest in the forward. We know that Arsenal are maybe considering a forward this summer. It does, for me anyway, very much depend upon whether or not a Lacazette or a Aubameyang does move on. But the very young striker has scored a hell of a lot of goals. In fact, I think he scored 7 in a pre-season game the other day. Yes, it was against much lower opposition, but still 7 goals in a pre-season game. He is absolutely a goal machine, that is for sure. And his style is not kind of your little diminutive kind of forward. He's got so many good traits and characteristics, and would provide certainly a different dynamism and variable to Arsenal's front line if they were to get him. But he is certainly, as I've said already, hot property and will be interesting. Plenty of parties. Spurs have been credited with him being kind of one of their main targets should Harry Kane leave. Inter Milan have also been looking at him as a possible replacement for Romelu Lukaku if he leaves Inter, and he certainly looks like he's going to now with the reports that we've seen coming out last night. So there is going to be a lot of competition for his signing. The figure that Fiorentina want is said to be around the £50 million mark, which is reasonable, I think, for a player of his level and quality and potential and age, and how kind of well appreciated he is amongst the footballing community. So if Arsenal were to go for a forwards, and you've seen the likes of Tammy Abraham and Lautaro Martinez linked to the Gunners, I think Vlahovic would probably be up and maybe near the top of my list if it was a case of able to get him. Do we want a tactical breakdown of Vlahovic? Maybe it's something that we need to sort out. I didn't certainly think I was going to be doing one, but now we've seen a very decent source in Damasio reporting this. Maybe it's certainly one that we can push ahead with in the weeks to come, and maybe we'll see him in an Arsenal shirt before the end of the summer is done. But it's still, I think anyway, a bit of a long shot to see this one becoming a reality. And that does conclude all of today's news and possible transfers both in and out of Arsenal. We move on to the second half and the final part of the show, which is getting your thoughts and your feelings and your questions answered. So if you do indeed have a question that you have been sitting on and worried about and have been desperate to try and get an answer for, then please throw them into the chat box and we will do our absolute best to answer them as well as possible. Let's go to Amandeep, who says, "Hi Tom, if Maddison does come to us for 60 to 70 million, what would be a good season according to goals and assists? 18 to 20 maybe." Well, I mean, he nearly hit that, of course, last season with Leicester. I think if you're spending 60 to 70 million on a player, you would hope that they would be contributing around 18 to 20 goal contributions if they're playing in that final third, which of course Maddison does like to do, although he says that his preferred position is more so a number 8, in which that that would obviously limit more so the amount of goals and assists playing slightly deeper in the pitch. But Pepe came in for £72 million in his first season, had 18 goal contributions. So is that a fair kind of payback for that price? I don't think that Pepe's yet justified that massive figure. We're still waiting to see him do that, and maybe this year will be that year. But I think that you would be looking, if you were going to play him at number 10, 17, 18, 19, 20 goal contributions, both goals and assists in a season, as a fair kind of repayment of that faith and that massive transfer fee. Benji says, if we're looking for homegrown players and maybe strikers for the future, what about a Patrick Bamford? Could be a good player for us. Now, Patrick Bamford is 27 years of age, so I'm not sure he's necessarily one for the future, but he is a striker that's underrated, I think, in the Premier League. Similar kind of feeling around him and Danny Ings, despite Danny Ings having a much worse injury record compared to Bamford. And it's going to be interesting how Ings gets on at Aston Villa. Would Bamford be one of the players that people turn their noses up at in the Premier League? I certainly think so. He's not favourable. He's not an attractive kind of player to look at as a profile, but I think he's an underrated forward. And if Arsenal were to say, go and get Patrick Bamford, it would be a very intriguing deal, or maybe allow him to take that next step up in his career. Let's go to Varesh, who says, Tom, what do you think? Can we break the record of the panic signings? Of course, you remember the summer in which we signed Mikel Arteta, of all people. We also signed Per Mertesacker and Andre Santos, all in what felt like the last kind of few moments of that transfer window. Per Mertesacker turned out to be a very decent player in my view. For us, I think he was, very competent, and whilst he lacked in speed, his defensive awareness and defensive capabilities were very good, and was one of the better defenders during that period. And I remember the FA Cup final performance alongside Rob Holding against Chelsea, that we will never, ever kind of forget that and those performances for us. But Andre Santos was an absolute failure. And Mikel Arteta was Mikel Arteta. He was a decent centre midfielder, was a captain, a leader on the middle of the park, but never really progressed our midfield. That's probably a fair assumption. But he partnered really well with Santi Cazorla at times, and then was obviously taken over by Francis Coquelin. So maybe we'll see some record-breaking panic times at the end of this window. I've seen a lot of people just, again, turning their noses up at Patrick Bamford, which, again, is very Arsenal for a guy that scored 17 Premier League goals and got 8 assists last season for Leeds. So I really am I'm unsurprised at how kind of naive we can be at times as an Arsenal fan base to be like, no, not interested whatsoever when it's a guy that scored 17 Premier League goals. I mean, more than both Aubameyang and Lacazette, by the way, last season. So just consider that for a second. SJ says, do you think Arsenal are doing silent business? Absolutely. I think Arsenal are definitely trying to keep things as closed behind the scenes as feasibly possible. They want some things to come out during that documentary, but things do, of course, leak. I don't think the documentary is having a bearing on the way in which Arsenal are doing their transfer business. But I think that they'll be in the back of their minds thinking, I wonder if we can get kind of those deals done. And we'll see, obviously, how that plays out during the first couple of episodes of that documentary. And we'll wait and see for that. But I don't think, I always think, rather, that Arsenal are trying to do as much business as secretly as feasibly possible. But things just do leak, unfortunately. Ugang says, City are going for English players. Chelsea are going for homegrown strikers. Man United are going for Sancho. And we are going for English players. Seems there might be a change in regulations in the near future. It's something that I've spoken about with you guys. If you remember, I'm saying that the Premier League and the FA have always got the prerogative to reduce the amount of non-homegrown players that teams are allowed to have in, or other players they're allowed to have in their squads. And it's unsurprising that these teams are making more of an effort to push ahead with kind of these homegrown talents. Arsenal have done the same thing by bringing in Ben White and obviously trying to tie down a lot of their current homegrown players that will become homegrown, like Smith Rowe will be from next year. Joe Willock is already one of those players. We could see him leave. Bukayo Saka will obviously become a homegrown player when he reaches 21 years of age. Before they're 21 and before if they turn 21 in a certain year. So Smith Rowe turned 21 this year. He doesn't yet count in that homegrown bracket because you have to be 21 before I think it's before the 1st of January of that year before you count towards that. So in 2022, Emile Smith Rowe will be counted as a homegrown player in Arsenal's team. So they're certainly things that you certainly need to be aware of. And I think that's why Arsenal are pushing ahead in the way that they are. Maybe that's a reason for this Kieran Trippier link that's also cropped up as well. Rahil says, is it true that Sheffield United are eyeing QPR goalkeeper Seny Dieng, with Arsenal pushing for a £32 million Aaron Ramsdale transfer? Both these two outlets have reported this. I can't tell you whether or not, Rahil, it's categorically true or not. We haven't seen anything from what I would consider our more and most reliable sources, your Wheatleys, your Watts, your Benjis and your Ornsteins. We're still waiting to see whether or not Arsenal do indeed push with that third bid for Ramsdale. We're expecting, Football London have said that they expect a third bid to be made. We don't know if that's been made yet or not. Nothing has come out about that, but we'll wait and see. And I still am shocked by the amount of money that they're putting forward. I did think there was criticisms of the goal that Ramsdale conceded from the header against Birmingham a little bit too harsh. I do feel as though that was exaggerated because there is a kind of a general consensus that people do not want to see us pay that much. And so when Ramsdale concedes a goal like he did against Birmingham, it's overanalyzed. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that kind of, I thought it was a really good header down into the ground, hits the floor just as it bounces into the back of the net. I didn't see really too much about what Ramsdale necessarily did wrong in that moment. And actually it was kind of a lot more on the defense's fault for not dealing with the cross that really should have been dealt with much, much better. So I didn't really see too much of an issue with that. I thought it was a fantastic header. Was it from Colin? 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 I don't know if it's Colin or if it's like you have the French Colin. As well. He used to play in MLS. I think it was a French centre-back called Colin, but you never pronounced it that way. So there you go. I don't know who it is. I don't know who the guy is, and I'm not aware, but I think it was a guy called Colin who scored the goal. Dirk says, Maddison or Silva? Maddison for me. Adam, Partey is out he's expected to return to training in 3 weeks, so we expect after the international break that he will be returning to the team, and that's obviously positive news considering how badly injured we were worried about him being, but he hopefully will be returning after the international break, which is when the transfer window has then closed. So that's certainly something you need to keep your eyes on. Let's go to Johan. He says, or Jahan, sorry, he says, hey Tom, do you think that we will rather get Bruno even after renewing Xhaka's contract, and we still have Torreira, El Neni, Lokonga, and Partey? My instinct tells me that Arsenal have wanted a centre midfielder, and if they've always been talking about Xhaka, about how they wanted him to stay, they would still want to improve us in the midfield. Maybe how good Lokonga's been changes their minds on that, and maybe they didn't expect Lokonga to be as good as he has been. And I hope he starts the first game against Brentford because he deserves to, based upon his pre-season performances over Mohamed El Neni. That is for absolutely sure. I would hope that we're still interested in a central midfielder. I'd hope that we're still looking to sign one. We will wait and see. But for me anyway, I worry that the contract does affect it. But I would hope, and my instinct tells me that Arsenal have been interested in bringing in a central midfielder on top of Lokonga and need to improve that area of the pitch. Sabas obviously left. Lokonga came in. El Neni's going to go eventually. We'll wait and see. But Miguel Aziz and how he's impressed may be affecting that decision. We'll wait and see. Tuan says, hi Tom, Correa or Vlahovic? Correa is a very average player and Vlahovic is certainly not. So it's an easy question for me, mate. Balaji says, hey Tom, do you think that we will still make those 3 signs? I say confident. I am cautiously optimistic is probably the best way to put it. I still think we will get 3 players in before the end of the window. There is still a long, long way to go in this window. We will wait and see. I don't think we'll get them in before the first game of the season, that's for sure. But my prediction is 3 signings, and we'll see if that takes place. That may change. I may go down to 2 if we've got a week left, but we've done stranger things, so we'll wait and see. Heron says, when Arsenal lose later today, how insane will the meltdown be? Yeah, we will do a show this evening. Obviously, we are doing a podcast this evening. I'll be joined by Owen, Drew, and John for our first official podcast of the new season ahead of Brentford. We're going to be discussing everything from the Spurs game to transfers to Brentford. We're going to be talking about it all. So do join us at 8 p.m. later on this evening for the first main official podcast of the new season. Sunday evenings is back again with those shows. So yeah, looking forward to doing that with the boys. And make sure you tune in. So we'll talk about the meltdown, if there indeed is one, after the game today. Tactical breakdown on Vlahovic. I'm not going to do one on Bernardo Silva just yet. I'm very cautious about those links to Bernardo Silva. I think his availability, the fact that Arsenal want an attacking midfielder, makes that link, it's a sensible one to suggest, and it's one that I would have certainly guessed may have come forward. But I'm cautious about the Bernardo Silva links at the moment, and I will wait. But the Vlahovic one, Demartio is an outlet that I do trust and do look a lot of the work that they do. He is a journalist. It's not just an outlet. And I am looking to hopefully produce for you guys something on him. He's a lot more unknown, of course, than Bernardo Silva as well. And that's one of the things about the tactical breakdown shows, is that they do break down these players. They do tell you about them and analyze them, and they get you that expert insight on them as well. I don't know what time the kickoff is, Ade. I need to have a quick check on Arsenal's website. I have been away this weekend. It is at 2 o'clock today, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So make sure you tune in for that. I think you can get a pass, or you can watch it in some way, shape, or form. There'll be a way to watch it, I'm sure. But we will be reacting to that a little bit later on this evening. Manu says, the only position, in my opinion, we will certainly get is a backup goalkeeper, and the others will be assessed in January, I fear. We will wait and see. João Ribeiro says, would you sell Bukayo Saka for 70 million to make another big signing? Absolutely not. No chance would I ever look to sell Bukayo Saka in any shape or form. SJ says, Tom, have you heard of the Inter Milan liquidation news, and do you think that it is true? No, I have not seen anything about a liquidation of Inter Milan. 13 hours ago, it was tweeted, breaking, Inter Milan. Let's have a look at this. Can you load? Thank you. It's heading towards liquidation. The plans to sell all players who have an offer arrive, like Lukaku, Lautaro Martinez, Barella, De Vrij, could still leave. All of this supposedly, according to Corriere dello Sport. That's the first I've heard of it. We'll see. We will see. But we know Inter's financial issues. We know that it's very much a problem right now, and yeah, so that's going to be very, very interesting. It's fair to say. Spurs are showing it on their YouTube channel, says Rahil, or you can watch it on Arsenal for $7.99. Oh dear! Why do we have to pay to watch a pre-season friendly? That's mad. That is mad. Matt says, why would we go for Trippier over Aarons? I don't know. Matt, I can't actually answer that question. I don't know why you would go for Trippier over a Max Aarons, especially if they're the same price. Maybe they think that Trippier is going to give you more immediately, and you've got kind of the Norton Cuffeys of this world coming through the youth ranks that they're hoping to look at, and we've got decent cover in Callum Chambers and Maitland-Niles as well. Maybe that's why. But I agree, Matt. I can't really answer that one really well. I just don't really think that it is. Oh, very true, Mark. It is for them. I suppose it is for the Mind charity, so that does make sense. So yeah, fair enough. You've proven me wrong in that moment. So that is a very good reason to pay for the match. But we did, of course, have to pay for those games to watch against Rangers and Hibs. So, you can forgive me for my transgressions in that area. So there you go. Vlahovic or Martinez, I will hold my opinion on that until we do a tactical breakdown, because we will be comparing the two of them. So make sure, Chris, you tune in for that one. Dave Lincoln says, do you think there could be a version 2 of the European Super League? I think it's inevitable. Well, I mean, it's ironic that FIFA was so against it and have now, I think, set up one for Africa. There's like an African Super League. So it feels to me anyway that one of these types of things is inevitable. The Champions League format is changing. In a few years' time, they're going to a round-robin league style anyway before going to a knockout stage and removing group stages. So it's just a matter of time, to be honest, until this type of league situation does come around, and we'll wait and see how that indeed does change the landscape of the game. But it does seem very inevitable, Dave, at the moment. So there you go. It's been confirmed as false news that they're going into liquidation, says Premier League chat. So there you go. Lots of questionable stories flying about. So make sure you keep your wits about you. Chris says, do you think Atletico's interest in Bernardo is genuine after they just got Rodrigo de Paul? If not, who else is there that you may get him other than PSG? Yeah, I think de Paul is a different player to Bernardo Silva, but de Paul's more of a number 8 than a Bernardo Silva is. Bernardo Silva is more of an advanced 7 or 10 in comparison. So, yeah, I think their interest would be real, but I do think they would need to move on some players like an Angel Correa, a Ferreira Carrasco, João Felix. Like any of these guys could be moved on because they obviously need they will need to make some money because La Liga is in a situation where salary caps are in place and you don't want to really mess around with La Liga at the moment because it could cost you the greatest player of all time if you do. So there is certainly a way that you need to be acting if you are a La Liga club right now, and it's not spending oodles of money on players when you need to move players on. So there you go. Anyway, we are going to indeed finish the show off there. Thank you ever so much, guys, for tuning in. As always, please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on. This is the final day that you can indeed vote for us in the Football Content Awards. So please, if you would ever be so kind to send a tweet out today by tweeting I am voting for @the_Gooner_TV in @the_FCAs for hashtag Best Club Creator. If you don't have Twitter, there is more information in the description of today's video to let you know how you can indeed vote for us. It is the last day for you to do so. So please do take 2 seconds out of your day to show some support for the channel and a final push. And maybe we'll get a nomination. I doubt it because there is a lot of amazing kind of content creators that we're up against. But please do show some support. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat box. I can see all your kind comments. Do drop a like on today's video if you haven't indeed enjoyed it. And subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll be bringing you more content throughout the days and weeks and months ahead of the new season and throughout it as well. And there's lots of exciting stuff to come too. See you at 8 p.m. tonight for the podcast and the first podcast of the season with Drew and John and Owen. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope Arsenal beat the Spurs. And as always, up the Arsenal.